The genetic code or generative principle of grammar. In the last video, we talked about learning grammar as a habit, not as a subject like we do in school. Near the end of the video, we introduced the concept of each sentence having a genetic code or generative principle. This is a crucial concept to understand, because its practice is the difference between studying for years having meager results and training in English and having more results in a few months than most people see in years. So, what is the genetic code of grammar? The genetic code of grammar means the internalization of grammar to the subconscious mind. The generative principle means that because the grammar is installed on the subconscious level, that the production of grammatically correct sentences is automatic, free of remembering the rules by which sentences can be constructed. Stated otherwise, how is it that you can speak Korean without thinking? It is because you already have the foundation, or code of Korean grammar, in its entirety, embedded in your brain on a subconscious level. This grammar engine, or grammar habit, can generate whatever you want to say immediately. No thinking required. That's because the grammar rules are a part of you. To say it again, the process is subconscious. So, what do I mean by the phrase genetic code of grammar? Just like the genetic code can replicate or produce every part of the human body, the genetic code of grammar can produce thousands of sentences relative to that one particular genetic code. That means that rather than memorizing 1,000 sentences to learn 1,000 sentences, you only need to learn one genetic code to generate the 1,000 sentences. This is the generative principle. Here's what I mean. In your own language, you have the freedom to speak thousands of sentences from one strand of grammatical genetic code. If you had learned Korean by the conscious process of having to memorize hundreds of thousands of sentences, you would still be learning Korean right now. This is what is meant by putting together the 1,000-piece puzzle. Actually, it is much larger. This is exactly what I meant by saying that English is not a subject. It is a habit. Every language is. The genetic code of the Korean language is a part of you, just as much as you have Korean genetics on the cellular level that make you Korean and not Chinese, or any other race for that matter. Back to English grammar. There are two main paths to follow when learning English. The most common path is studying English as a subject, which requires a lot of memorization and learning of grammar rules. This is believed to be the generative principle of speaking the language. It is not the generative principle, because you still have to remember rules in order to be able to speak. The problem is that this methodology multiplies the work, because it represents all of the millions of puzzle pieces and not the picture the puzzle pieces will eventually form, or grammar habit. This is a conscious process, and that is why we say that it is learning English as a subject. The genetic code of language, on the other hand, represents learning the principle or principles by which thousands of sentences can be generated, not from the conscious mind, or having to remember, or think about what grammar you need. No, but by internalizing one principle that can generate thousands of sentences on command. So how do we install the grammar habit or generative principle into our brains? By utilizing the genetic code of language. Certainly not by learning grammar rules as a cognitive or conscious process, or English as a subject. No. By practicing one piece of grammar using multiple pieces of vocabulary until that one strand of genetic code is transferred into the subconscious. Not by memorizing rules and lists of vocabulary. We will talk about why I don't ever recommend that students memorize vocabulary in the traditional sense in a later video. It is a waste of time. As crazy as that statement may seem, in an ideal world, You would have an English-speaking friend to practice with. If you could speak every day for hours with him or her, you would see a tremendous increase in your English-speaking ability. This person would be able to listen to you and correct your mistakes. And the more errors and the more corrections you could make, the more quickly you could become fluent. So, in the next video, we will discuss the Grammar Habit Academy chart system, which will be your English-speaking friend that will help you use the genetic code of a sentence and develop that into the grammar habit, or generative principle.